first flight of the orbital Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Hey everyone. Alright, it is Monday, Labor Day. I hope everyone's having a great weekend this weekend. And thanks for tuning in. Um, so, my favorite topics. We have covered NFTs, we've covered cryptos, we've covered some awesome things. We've had amazing people come and talk to the community, and I will forever be grateful for that. But now it's time to talk about the broad market. We've taken a couple weeks off of it, and good Lord, it is crumbling. Like as we speak right now, it's just terrible. So I guess first things first, right? So while we were in the midst of doing NFT week and during crypto week, the eviction and housing moratoriums went kaput. Like uh, Supreme Court was like, nope, sorry, you can't do this. You're not a governing body, CDC, you can't do this. Sorry. The people that are over in recess right now, they're the ones that actually have to do that. So, um, this isn't a good situation. So this is kind of what I was fearful of. Back, whenever we were talking about this in June, and then they kicked it again in July. Happy Sunday, Peter Joy. It's Monday. Don't mess with me like that. It is so Monday. Anyway, um, what I was worried about back in June, July, it is happening. It's here, right? Because the landlords are starting to file evictions, and people are going to be, out of a home and whatnot. And I do have a couple articles for just that. I went from coast to coast. I have one for New York and one for um, is it San Francisco? I think it's either San Francisco or San Diego. Somewhere in California, San Diego. Um, and mind you, I am a renter. I rent because we were out in Hawaii, and then we stayed with my parents up in their place in their townhome when we got back to the mainland and had our daughter, and then we moved to Tampa Bay, and then with Hurricane Michael and everything, their townhome that they were in, the rental price was going to go up like $600 or something crazy. Like, it was an astronomical increase because of the hurricane and the lack of housing there. And that's why they are now with me. I said, hey, let's just combine households, and this was right when COVID was hitting. So I was like, just combine households. We'll figure it out later. So yeah, that's how this situation kind of came to be. And so right now, and with saying that, like, we've paid our rent every month. We made sure to pay our rent every month because, you don't want that uncertainty because if you miss one and you miss another and you miss another, it just snowballs. It's a snowball effect. And before you know it, you owe a year and a half worth of rent, right? Like, it's ridiculous. So no, I don't. I'm on both sides, right? Like, I'm on both sides with all of this. I understand that work's been really hard for people to find, but the landlords still have to be able to pay their taxes. So, if there was an honest effort on both sides to work with each other, that would have been one thing. But people that just kind of abuse the system, I don't know how I feel about that. Because like right now, they're in San Diego. They're estimating 750,000 households are at risk of eviction. 750,000 households. That is a lot. That is a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's anywhere from one person to, if it could be like a family of 6. We don't know how many people are in these houses. But that is a lot to add into a homeless population. Especially one for like San Diego because they already have a pretty gnarly problem with it. So yeah, that's just one instance. Out in New York, New York extended the eviction protections for tenants, and so this is kind of the opposite effect. So like the tenants actually are able to stay, but then you also have so now you have the landlords that they're still having to pay the property taxes. They have to pay still those bills that they owe on those houses, and they're just going to lose them. Right? Like that's just ends up what happening. You end up getting foreclosed on or anything, and so the people renting in there, they're still not going to have a home. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help anything. That's just the landlord now is going to have to lose a property, and that will take a major hit on them. So yeah, that's the main grasp on that. That's it's really troubling. It's very sad. So the states have billions and billions of money sitting that was supposed to go to help with landlords and all the payments and back rent, but it's just sitting there. Yeah, it's asinine. It's completely asinine how all of this got set up and how the system failed completely. Like there was assistance. They had assistance set aside, yes, but they didn't disperse it. They didn't disperse it at all. And I don't know exactly what these states were doing, what the state governments were doing with that money. Um, it's it is troubling. It is very troubling. I will say, anybody in the Discord, that if you do want to come up and talk about anything that I am talking about tonight, if you have anything with broad market, you are more than welcome to come join me. But yeah, if not, I will continue on because I've had Dr. Trillions today has been kind of on a roll. Whoa. So you guys are now seeing my Twitter. Give me one sec, guys. Why is that up? I will figure that out here in just a second. There we go. Let me get that actual monitor up for you guys. There we go. So Dr. Trillions has been kind of on a roll lately. There we go. We'll go here. He's touched on a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to bring up, actually. Let's see, where did it go? So this one was actually kind of fun. The Monopoly board. I actually didn't know this rule number 11. If you guys haven't seen it, what if the banks run out of money? Some players would think the bank is bankrupt if it runs out of money. The bank never goes bankrupt. To continue playing, use slips of paper to keep track of each player's banking transaction until the bank has enough paper money to operate again. The banker may also issue new money on slips of ordinary paper. I didn't know that was actually a rule, so I actually found it, and good lord, like it's kind of crazy of what we're seeing, right? Hey, Johnny Rocket, what's going on? And so then he also had found this one. A former Fed official warns of urgent threat of another financial crisis. I mean, hello, you're just now kind of figuring this out, right? And so everyone in the Discord, I will post this link up for you guys in the Trade Talk chat. There you go. So if you want to follow along with me. I'm not going to read this all, but it's just kind of funny because Jerome Powell's been over here saying, like, yeah, we're okay, nothing, it's all peachy and we're doing okay, like, nothing to worry about, right? But Don Kahn, the Fed's former vice chair for financial supervision, used the opportunity instead to warn of imminent risks to the stability of the global financial system and called on regulators and lawmakers to take swift action to address those concerns. Dealing with risks to the financial stability is urgent, he said during the speech to the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas, blah, blah, blah. The current situation is replete with unusually large risk of unexpected, which, if they come to pass, could result in financial system amplifying shocks, putting the economy at risk. There was another thing that they put that was said. I can't remember what it was now. But I will post this link also on YouTube for you guys so that you can see it. Click through it and read it. But yeah, I mean, this literally is just a lot of the same stuff that we've been talking about, like what is going on. Khan also took aim at two creations of the Dodd-Frank Financial Reform Law Institute. In the wake of the last financial crisis, the Financial Stability Oversight Council, which comprises the head of all of the major financial regulatory bodies, and the Office of Financial Research, which was equipped with subpoena power so regulators could demand information needed to maintain financial stability. I think most would agree that the performance of these two new entities have been spotty. Yes, I would say so. But yeah, anyway, so he's basically trying to call it out. He's like, look, there's some crap going on and it's not being addressed. We need to step it up here, right? And so I don't exactly know how we fix it at the moment. but we can start preparing for it, right? Like we can start looking towards, that 6, 9 months ahead. So if we can um, see it coming, if we can, kind of know ahead of time that this is about to implode. And when I say this, meaning the entire economy, because everything's tied together, right? Uh, if you guys look at the S&P 500 chart, if you look at the Dow Jones chart, those things are running hard. They are running so hard right now. Just in the last year, 2 years, they haven't really. They took like a 2 month dip, and that's it. And that's concerning, given the fact of how, like what we're seeing in the economy itself, right? Like, we have inflation, which the inflation thing cracks me up because, uh, I'll say back in February, March, they're like, no, 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 we will never see inflation. Inflation's not a thing. It's not going to happen. And then a few months later, they're like, oh, it'll just be a slight inflation, not, just slightly higher than what we've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, well, okay, it might be really bad, but it's transitory. It's transitory. It's not, it's not going to be forever or anything, which it won't be forever, but it's going to hurt. Like, I just have this gut feeling that it's going to hurt. And there, we need to start getting the word out, because if people are just listening to, um, the mainstream media and what's going on with it, and really just devoting all of their faith into that, people are going to get hurt. And it just reminds me of the thing on The Big Short where Steve Carell's character's in the street and he's like, I'm looking around and everybody just looks so happy. They have no idea what's about to happen, and that's exactly it. Like we look around when we go out, like we try to, see people, and we try to kind of grasp how, the general feeling is when we go out and about on, in our area. And we have noticed a shift. We have started noticing a shift. Like, I mean, we live in, the Tampa Bay area. Like, people, for the most part, are pretty happy here. They smile, they laugh, they're a joyous group. But that joy is kind of gone. That joy has kind of left the area. Like, it's not even like even during COVID. Even during COVID, um, it was okay. But now it's not okay anymore. And that really kind of makes me sad, because it's just not the same, if that makes sense, guys. Um, so in relation to the broad market with all of this, like, okay, Kenna, you're just now rambling. So when it comes to the broad market, between the housing, and we've now talked about like inflation, people aren't able to get jobs, and if these, you know, if companies are going under because they can't get workers, and they can't produce, or supply chains are limited. Like, we're already starting to see that. Like, I believe it was D. I want to say it was D that posted a picture of Costco that was empty, I believe. Um, that that's frightening. That a Costco, um, a bulk warehouse type place to get, groceries, would be empty. That's weird. Um, we're seeing in Australia. I don't know if you guys have seen the video clips coming out of Australia. Like, there's some of the stores there that are actually empty now because, the truckers said no. The truckers that were delivering all the supplies and everything, they said no, and they stopped rolling. They stopped delivering goods and everything, and so the stores are starting to go bare. Our truckers have started doing the same thing. They kind of sided with the Australian truckers, and a lot of them parked. They said no, we're not going to deliver. So that does bite into the supplies. And if there's no supplies, people can go hungry. And this is where I tell you guys that, the three basic necessities that humans need: water, food, shelter, right? Um, Start getting seeds. That's what I would do. Like we have different plants that are growing. My husband started, that he uses like a Home Depot bucket with some soil, and he has tomatoes and spinach growing right now, because that's what's in season down here. Start planting some food. Worst case scenario, you give it to a neighbor. You give it to a food bank that might need the food. That's the worst case scenario. You plant some seeds, and you don't need it and somebody else does, right? So that's you know, so we have inflation, and that'll make, the supply and demand, kind of the same thing we talked about in the stock market. Um, Supply is low, demand is high. Twinkies last a while, right? What is that movie? Is it Zombieland? Zombieland, where they're like after the Twinkies. Um, yeah, Twinkies. Oh God, I couldn't survive on Twinkies. My daughter could, but I can't. Um, but yeah, so that would definitely increase the cost and everything. And so then we also have other factors to look at is oil. What's going on with gas prices around the world? Different wars that we're seeing. We have all of this stuff in the um, South China Sea. The trade wars between Australia and China, and China and Taiwan, and um, everything with Afghanistan, with the Taliban and Russia and everything like that. Um, there's going to be a breaking point with the petrodollar, our USD, right? Because that's basically all that it's backed by is the oil. Um, and since we have one less pipeline, thank you, Biden, and one that has been recently hacked, which it could be susceptible to again. Um, it it's gonna hurt because you figure the gas prices are gonna go up, which makes the cost of delivering go up, and well, companies aren't gonna just eat that. They're gonna pass it on to the consumer, and so we will see that happening too. The oil is also used for plastic. That makes plastic more expensive. Plastic, again, will not, the companies won't eat the extra cost to make plastic or buy plastic, so that'll get passed on. Like, it's just a lot. It's a lot to think about whenever you go to the store or when you're, buying things like that. Because there's no reason why our grocery bills and things, like, I mean, I hope everyone's keeping track. Like, has everybody been keeping track of their grocery bills since I mentioned it like a few weeks ago to start doing that? If you haven't, start doing it. Like, keep your receipts. Hey, Freshmaker. Keep your receipts week after week or month after month, and just kind of see and try to do it to where you have at least one day a month or something where you buy the exact same things, right? The exact same things, to see what kind of inflation, how high are the prices getting, or if the packages are shrinking. Like, I tweeted that out not too long ago about the toilet paper from Sam's, like we were talking about with Philip. That it was $1 more, and it had they shrank the rolls. Like, I have both stacks on it. Um, and it's a smaller package for $1 more, and it's only a 3 months difference between the two packages. Hey, Ashley. I have butane burners for cooking and oil and coal. I also can make a satellite dish cooker that you can learn to make on YouTube. Oh, that's really cool, Johnny Rocket. Yes, I had an exact 8% increase on my weekly Aldi purchases, meat included. Holy crap. Yeah, that's crazy. And Aldi's supposed to be like one of the cheaper places to get things, right? Like, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering Aldi right. So yeah, that's these are the things that we need to start looking out for, and kind of just reminding people, keeping it in people's ears that, like, yeah, your dollar, and plus the value of the dollar is going down. Whenever there's uncertainty in our monetary system, the value goes down and things go up, and then you have the shrinkflation where everything's smaller but it costs more or the same. So we just kind of have to keep that, wit about everybody for the time being, right? Because that can't stand. They can't. We just need to start blowing that out. Like being like, why? Why are you doing this? This is unnecessary. Because that drives me nuts. That absolutely just drives me nuts. So yeah, so that's inflation. That's real estate. So then we also have. Yeah, no, I actually priced an online cart in Aldi and another popular local store. I saved a whopping $2.86 at Aldi. Really? I've heard it is really high. Johnny Rocket out in California. So yeah, okay, we'll also go into, okay, this is more, more fun, the MOS, because I have had a few people message me about it and thoughts about things being halted. I guess this new regulation that they're trying to push through at the end of September. I did look more into it, and I do not believe that is going to be a problem with our MOAS. So there is this. Let me refind it again. Um, let's see, is this one, I think? Yes. All right, so it's talking about it's from Gabriel. If anybody saw that on Twitter, me going kind of through this one. But it was a post on Reddit by HM Hemes. Yeah, I have no idea. Big changes coming that could affect the OTC zombie stocks effective September 28th. Many OTC stocks will be moved to a private broker-dealer network called the Expert Market, and you, the retail investor and general public, will not have access to prices, data, or trading within the private market. And so basically, and the SEC is okay with this. The SEC has basically said, like, it's okay that this is happening, and I don't agree with this because from my understanding, everything I read about it and read into it, they are, okay, so it's like Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster really wasn't able to be traded on a lot of things, right? Like it's a zombie stock. Like there's literally one Blockbuster in the entire world in Bend, Oregon, and Sears. Like come on, like these are zombie stocks, the true definition. Like they're dead. They're dead companies in that sense. And so those are the kinds of companies that would be put onto this little hidey hole of a market that you and I couldn't touch. Like it's literally for like institutions and professionals and whatever jargon. I don't know what would classify somebody as a professional trader, right? And so that leads me to believe that that's not a fair and free market, right? So what this tells me is that, okay, well, yeah, these zombie stocks that you can pump and dump really quick, you can gain, you can buy a crap ton of shares for a very minuscule amount, and then you can pump it up and make out like a bandit. Like that's exactly what they did with that crypto coin, a few months ago. Like it was a hidden coin that no one could touch but them, and took it from 8 cents to 10K or whatever it was. And so it's just a little bit fishy to me. I do not believe this affects AMC or GME. Just zombie stocks only. It's also OTC stocks. It's it's OTC stocks that are going to be delisted. It's ones that are at a risk of being delisted from the OTC, and they would move it to this expert market thing or something. So my concern with that is that so like you have like AMC and GME, right? They shorted these stocks to the oblivion. BlackBerry, Nokia, Sundial, you name it. They all the meme stocks. They shorted them to oblivion. So what would stop companies from doing this to a point where they would take a company, short it all the way down, and get it delisted off the OTC, and then keep shorting, and then, make it to where people like us can no longer invest in it and save the company like we have done. We saved GameStop and AMC and a few of the others. And so what would stop them from doing that? That predatory shorting that they've basically been doing, getting it off of the OTC, getting it into this bullcrap expert market thing, to where it wouldn't be able to be touched. Like that's kind of retarded, for lack of. I'm sorry, PC, I know, but it's dumb. Um, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I mean, if you're gonna have a stock market, you have to be able to have, and you're gonna have companies that are traded publicly. You should like everybody should be able to trade on that company, right? Like that's my opinion at least. Um, this gives them another hidey hole to do pump and dumps on at their own leisure, basically, and I don't like it. I just don't like it. But it doesn't affect AMC, GME because those are not at risk of being delisted on the OTC or anything like that. They're not at risk for any of that. So this doesn't really affect AMC, GME at all. It's just a very big BS move, in my opinion, that prevents people from trading fairly. It just gives them a upper hand that we won't see if they do it. Hallister, do you have anything you want to add to the moon? Anyone? You guys like to come up and talk, that's why I'm asking. Nothing will stop them, and I believe that's the point of this getting pushed through. Yep, right. That I believe is absolutely truth. All right. 2 regulars coming up here. But yeah, it's To the Moon, I want to get your input because you've been doing a lot of the real estate stuff and you've been kind of tracking it with me. What is your feeling about it?
As far as what you are reading about the moratorium being lifted, or in general, or I'm not quite sure where you want me to interject.
The moratorium being lifted, and then in any general things that you're finding as well.
So, I mean, I think if we're going to sort of compare it to anything that we can look back into history, when the housing market sort of melted down in 2008, if you were a tenant in a piece of property that was investment that was being foreclosed on, then they got to get rid of a tenant and then foreclose. And so, on the immediate surface, the people that really need to negotiate this are the landlords, because you can't very well throw a tenant out of if they're on a lease on a building. Let's just say you, Kenneth, for instance, just signed a 12-month lease and your landlord's going into foreclosure. They can't throw you out. They have to make good on that contract. And so that's a real problem for the banks and the court systems. And so I think the tenant is probably safer in this than the landlords are. But the last sort of data point that I looked at for the landlords, and that might be what addresses the why this money's still sitting there not being used, is the landlords were trying to sort of find a way to negotiate, look, pay the money from the government straight to the banks and cut a deal so that we don't get affected by our credit, and it won't come back on us, because it's not been our fault that we can't pay the mortgage if you don't make the tenants pay. So I mean, I think that's still a lot of negotiations that go on, and trust me, all the people I know in the banking business, they do not want to start the foreclosure process. So, there might be another plan that gets put into place to kind of maybe bail out what is going to be the inevitable. But other than that, I mean, as you pointed out, we all kind of knew this was coming, and it's starting to kind of bubble to the surface in ways that we can't ignore for much longer.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't know how these negotiations are going to work. Like, I mean, you figure how long is Congress out for recession? When does Congress get back?
I don't know. I think it's, I don't know.
Look.
I'm not the right guy to ask that.
No, that's cool.
I think it was 6 weeks. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it was supposed to be like 6 weeks total, so maybe another month or so.
They are back the 10th. They come back on the 10th, and then they leave again, let's see, 16th, 17th, and then they're gone again in October. So they have like, they don't really have a lot of time to figure some stuff out. Like,
my personal opinion is, if I am a landlord that is in trouble on a piece of property and the government and the banks aren't willing to cut me a deal, I'll simply stop making payments and I'll let them drag it out into court, because you can drag it out for a couple of years. And that way the landlords, they might be able to have $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 per property that they just have sort of collected in rents. And if you're a tenant and, the eviction's been lifted and you don't have a job, I would just sit tight. It's not like you got anything to do anyway. If they throw you out, you got no other choice anyway. So, I mean, if I was a tenant, I would just drag my feet and say, take me to court. And I really don't think the courts are going to be too friendly to, all of a sudden all of our dockets have got millions of these things. I mean, they're going to sort of tell the government, you should have planned this out better. That's my opinion, and that's only because I kind of went through this in 2006 through 2008. I had 6 properties that, it was like a holy mess, and the best advice I got was quit paying. Not going to change anything in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hallister, what's your input on this?
Well, I was just going to say, like, with that point in particular, I mean, what I think is interesting is, like, do people that are in that situation, like, do the majority of people that are in that situation even know that, right? Like, do they know that they can, take it to court and fight it, and that would delay things, probably for a significant period of time, like, given the way our court systems are, run. But, I mean, I don't know, this is getting broader than the broader market, but I mean, that's one of the big things, like, I worry about just with the country and the judicial system in general, is that, people don't know their rights in general, and they don't know, like, what they're allowed to do, and they if somebody tells them that they're in trouble, and somebody tells them that they have to do this, or XYZ, a lot of times they would do it before fighting it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, well, and to tie into this too, like, people not being able to pay their, back taxes or whatever for their properties, like the landlords, and not paying their rent. We also have to account for the fact that the unemployment benefits just ended. Did I read that right today? Is that today?
Yep, September 1st.
Yeah. Oh, so it was September 1st. It wasn't today. So yeah. So that's a good chunk of money leaving the economy too. People aren't going to be able to, buy goods, pay their bills. I mean, it's just such a shit show. I'm not saying we rely on the government. That's not a thing. But if they keep doing these shutdowns and they keep putting these mandates in, and you have all of these restrictions when you try to find a new job now, and I saw something pretty interesting. It was, I think it was on Twitter. I went down a rabbit hole with people trying to find a job, and there's this woman that has anxiety, bad anxiety, claustrophobic and everything. And so whenever she puts a mask on, she just panics, right? So she doesn't go to the grocery store. She does like home delivery and all this other stuff. That's how she survived the pandemic. She really didn't go anywhere. I don't remember which state she was in, so don't ask me. But she's trying to find a job, and all these places are like, you have to wear a mask, you have to wear a mask, or you have to be vaccinated. but she actually found, like, she was like one of those like rare 1.1% people, like, has an allergy to something in one of the um, injections or whatever. So, she can't get it. And it's just a mess at that point. And so you're like, okay, well, what can this person do? I know she can work from home, but then you assume that she has the money to afford internet or a computer or something like that to even, there's a lot of assumptions that you have to make, because maybe she's just tweeting from a phone, and you can't work on a phone. That doesn't work. So there's just a lot. There's just, I don't want to make assumptions, but it's just those kinds of simple cases that we have to take into account with everything going on in our economic stance, is that people might not be able to find work due to health restrictions, or, maybe one of their kids, is they have to stay home. Maybe they're a single parent. I don't know. Something goofy.
I'll add another observation that I think has gotten overlooked. We all know about COVID, but nobody really talks about the cost of COVID. Look, people going to the hospital. These hospitals are burdened with, these people can't pay their bills. And I don't know about the rest of the country, but here where I live, I know people in the healthcare profession, they're like, we can't keep people. And so just today, it was live on the news. One of the largest hospitals in the state, it was either Birmingham or Huntsville, I can't remember. Their whole night shift nursing staff said, we're not clocking in because we're not getting paid enough. And the director said, we're paying you $100 an hour. What more do you want? We can't, the insurance company's not going to just let us charge whatever we want. And so that sort of is going to become an economic catastrophe, in that the COVID burden is going to sort of overwhelm the resources. And the insurance companies are going to go, look, you can't charge any more than we're allowing you to charge. And then the government has to start regulating what people can and can't charge for COVID. And it's like, that's a whole nother leg to this catastrophe that's going to factor into, start kicking out all the legs in the economy. Healthcare is going to be another one that I'm a little worried about.
Yeah.
If we got frontline nurses that are deciding $100 an hour, that's a regular 40 hours, and then they get overtime. If that's not sufficient pay, at what point do they decide, okay, what is it going to be, $250 an hour? I mean, there's got to be an economic model that everybody agrees, look, the insurance company isn't going to pay, so you can ask for more, but we can't get it. And so, you can't just replace people because there's not enough people to get replaced with now.
Yeah, that's a good point to make too. I mean, I know, well, I mean, heck, they reported like 20 some odd doctors walked out of Miami-Dade, like,
Yep.
said, screw this, we're done. Like,
Right.
I don't know what to make of all of this. Like, oh Lord.
Plus, you got insurance carriers. Let's just sort of take for a minute. Let's say 300,000 people have got healthcare insurance. Of the 600,000 are infected. You still got a healthcare system that's going to go, we just can't keep paying for this. Y'all aren't working. We can't just keep paying the hospitals to insure COVID. So they're going to ask for the government to bail them out. And I just don't see COVID as being anything other than another way for us to figure out how are we going to bear the burden of that nightmare that's going to come down the economic pipeline.
Remember, fourth turn. We got 7 years left of the fourth turn. So this is going to be a rocky 7 years. Can't Stop is asking about the debt ceiling. Ask if anybody knows about the whole debt ceiling not being raised and 100 Republicans vowing not to raise it, and the overall effects that'll have nationally and globally. So I've touched on this a little bit, and Philip and I actually talked about it when he was on a little bit, but it's anything I've researched on the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is a massive problem right now. We need to, so from my understanding, the Treasury, and Tudeman, I'm sure you might be able to touch on this too. The Treasury looks like it might run out of money, unable to pay our debts or whatever by the middle of this month if they don't figure it out. Or is it next month? I believe it's the middle of this month.
Yikes.
Yeah, they're spending. Sorry, I was listening to Hambone over here. they're spending more money than they're making right now. And so remember this too. The Treasury is also part of the MOAS. It's one of the layers of the onion that pays out for the MOAS too. So that's another big factor with the Treasury. And so, if we don't default on our debts and everything, uh, on an economic standpoint, it's not a good thing. That loses a lot of faith in our uh, economic stance around the world, and our credit rating goes down, and um, we nobody's going to want to touch our economy. Period. Stock markets and international investors, other countries. We probably won't be able to get help if we need help, if we need to borrow money. The U.S. has never defaulted on their debts ever. Um, and it's said that if a country prints its own money, that they can't theoretically default on their debt. But I'm not so sure about that. I mean, and so Philip did bring up a pretty interesting thesis, is that they could mint $8 trillion coin or something like that. Something I can't remember what metal he said, but just to mint it, and then you'd have to put it in like the most secure vault ever. But I mean, but that's what's crazy, right? Is that that's what happens when you print your own money, right? Is that you literally mint it out of thin air, and you put a stamp on a precious metal coin and says this is worth this amount of money, and you put it in a vault. Period. That is not backed by much. It's kind of terrifying. It's literally like Monopoly money. Um, it's not a good look, and economically, I don't know if it would not be good. It wouldn't be
Yeah, but
good.
we've been doing it since what, the 70s? I mean, we've been
Jeez.
off the gold standard for forever now. I mean, we've been spending more money than we've been making for 40 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was talking about platinum. He was saying, yeah, make like a platinum coin, but I mean, I didn't fully understand that point because, like To the Moon said, I mean, we haven't really been based on a, bullion standard like in a long time. We've essentially just been printing, it seems. But yeah, I mean, and I think the other point he made on that was really good was that, it's not like we did, if that were to happen, which I don't really think they would allow it to happen because, it never has, and obviously would send like the entire global markets into turmoil, I think. Like if we did default on a portion of our debt, it would only be a portion of it, right? It's not an all or nothing type thing where we would just, completely default. It might be some of the most recently issued T-bills or something like that. And I mean, I don't know. Obviously, that would have an effect on treasury markets, bond markets, all that kind of thing, and the broad markets. But um, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like going back to Can't Stop's question. I mean, the last time this happened, like with the debt ceiling. I mean, I know this particular vote. Like they voted on it alongside like the infrastructure bill, and I know that it kind of passed on to the next round. So in terms of the senators or Congress people, saying that they weren't going to vote on it. I mean, at this point, like it could just be posturing. Although, I mean, they've obviously struck it down before. But I mean, I can't recall exactly when it was, but most of us can probably remember. I mean, sometime the last time this happened, where the debt ceiling wasn't extended, and then there were actually like government shutdowns for some period of time until they came back and they voted to lift the ceiling and everybody went back to work. um it's one of those things, I don't know, just digging a deeper hole, but
I think it's
I don't.
posturing. I agree with you. I think they're posturing. It's all politics.
Oh, and Tyler was wanting me to point out that we are exporting our inflation via the petrodollar, which is getting weaker and
Mhm.
weaker due to all of the backdoor deals with the OPEC, sorry, countries like China and um, oil producing companies. Sorry, I'm trying to play telephone at this point. He's been really looking into this part because he's really interested in how our dollars kind of going down with the with oil and everything. So because they've China had found those two um, huge oil reserves, right? And so and they didn't just find those. Like they're just now telling us about those. And so then you have Russia and all, these other countries over there that'll be like, oh, well, yeah, heck yeah, we'll probably buy from you anyway, versus these other countries. And they're doing all these backdoor deals, and so since our dollar is tied to oil, um, if we're if people aren't buying oil from the places where our dollar is backed, that just deflates it. Since we did go off the gold standard back in 50s, was it the 70s?
I think it was the 70s.
70s. Okay, we're getting confirmation on 70s. Sorry, this is. Bretton Woods. Okay, sorry, you're talking too fast at this point. So basically, here's the history lesson, guys. So, France called our bluff about not having enough gold, um, and we didn't, so we went off of it, and then it caused the Bretton Woods agreement. Could you guys hear all that?
No, I couldn't hear any of it.
No, you couldn't hear any of that.
quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, basically just that. He'll explain it on his Saturday. He can. That's your thing on Saturday. You're gonna go over the petrodollar because I'm not gonna sit here and play telephone this whole time. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, it's that's actually gonna be a good one for him to cover on Saturday because it's just gonna get weaker and weaker, and all this. The Afghanistan mess that we have, and anything going over in the Middle East. It just makes it very rough. And like everyone's saying, gas is already going up in a lot of places. We've gone up anywhere from 70 cents to $1 here in Florida. I know California, you guys are up in the $5 range. And it's just craziness. So yeah, overall thought on the debt ceiling not being raised, I pray that they don't let it get to that and make it worse. Because right now we can't afford to have it where people don't believe in our economy. Being the reserve currency of the world and everything, it's not good. It wouldn't be a good thing. Are you all prepared to buy the dip when they short attack the earnings? Oh, for GameStop, yeah. Let's see. The 0, 25, 30-year congressman had anything to do with the situation we're in. Just stop it. Embarrassing yourself. What? Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. The world state today is Trump's fault. And this has been 40, 50 year. This is just kicking the can. Just keep kicking the can, guys. This is not one individual president's fault. Okay, that's not it. It's very short-sighted to say, oh, it's just like when Trump was in. Oh, well, everything is Obama's fault. When Obama was in, it's all Bush's fault. Okay, it's yeah.
Well, yeah. That's part of the issue, though. It's almost like any president acts the way a lot of CEOs of public company acts, right? It's all about the next quarter, and it's all about maximizing the short term. We've become this extremely short-term focused, culture, just as a country, as a market, as an everything, outside of building for the long term. And I don't know, that could be what takes us into this fourth turn scenario. Because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of signs of it. I mean, I know you've been talking about it for a while. I posted this thing. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but it was just this like overview of the S&P from roughly like 80 to 2020, and
It's gnarly,
just
isn't it?
it's unbelievable. Well, and it happened so fast. I was saying I wish I could like slow it down, but you look. I mean, in 80, the S&P 500 was over 25% energy, and then that crashed and shrunk significantly. Moved up to the early 2000s, and then the tech bubble it was at about 40% of the S&P 500. That crashed down like to about 20, and then like it's been building and building, and even like December 2020 it was over 40% tech again. And I mean, tech has continued to run, this year. Like I wish I could get current statistics, just like on the industry breakdown, but I mean, that seems to be in a bubble. Even going back to like what Two to Moon was saying about kind of the nurses in the hospitals and insurance companies, and what they're going to be able to pay. I mean, I could go into some stuff about how healthcare companies like record revenues and like the way they like account for things, but I mean, one interesting point there is like, yeah, you have the insurance companies that aren't going to pay for it, but I mean, they pay an extremely discounted rate compared to like what an individual would pay, without insurance. And the pricing, like on particular procedures, like between like an insurance carrier and an individual, are just crazy. Um, but I mean, it's all, I don't know. It's just getting to a point where it all seems uh, fake almost, right? I mean, it's because in an efficient market, like all those things have impacts, right? Like if nurses are demanding more money, then the prices should rise, and then theoretically the insurance premiums would rise, and I mean everything would just kind of flow throughout the market. But um, I don't know. I don't know if that will happen, or I just don't think markets are all that efficient these days. And so you have like these knee jerk reactions, which actually kind of takes my point full circle, going back to like the presidents and CEOs and the markets focusing on the quarters, focusing on the short term. I mean, that seems to be part of the issue is everybody's trying to anticipate so much, everybody's trying to maximize short term benefit, that you have like these extreme knee jerk reactions. And I don't know that anything actually balances itself out the way that it's meant to in an efficient market.
No, and you're absolutely right. And so, like the fourth turn, so we've been in the fourth turn, if in theory, for 13 years. So the fourth turn is classified as the crisis turn. That's where you have a lot of war, a lot of disease, and just struggle and hardship, basically hell on earth, right? Um, and that's why I said we have about 7 years left. It's God. And what's crazy about that is that, a lot of us that are, in our 30s, like, think about that. About when we were 10 or 11, like, we can kind of remember our childhood being okay. Like, it was decent. People, weren't, totally hateful towards each other. It was just whatever. Um, and it's interesting because my mom is 61, and she's just talking to me today about how proud she is that, I took to a lot of this, learning the government, the economy, and everything since I was like 18. And she goes, back when, I was your age, back in the 70s, when all of that was going on, because I try to pick her brain about like economic stuff back in the 70s and 80s, and she's like, we didn't have the internet. She's like, what the news told us is what we believed. And so, needless to say, she kind of got red pilled when I became old enough to understand what was going on. So it's it was interesting because she was like, we didn't know everything that happened across the world and all the wars. She was like, we were literally telling each other peace and harmony, and everybody loved each other and all this other stuff. She was like, we were hippies. That's what we did, and that was how that's how we viewed the world, was that it was just peaceful, and that she didn't know all about the what was going on with the wars and all the hate and all this other stuff. Like, it's very fascinating, because we have today, where we do talk. We all talk. We have the internet. We can research. We get news, at a split second from across the world. Like, it's amazing to me. And so, sorry, I'm catching up on YouTube chat. Guys, let's not fight in the YouTube chat. Like, I mean, I'm cool with like differing opinions here, but yeah, no personal attacks, guys. I Wait, hold on. I saw something about the healthcare system. I don't see how any sane person can look at the American healthcare system and say this is fine. No, I believe 100%. You have health administration making $250,000 a year while nurses kill themselves working 70 hours a week. No, Skippy, I actually have to agree with you on that. Having worked in the medical field, no, our healthcare system is definitely broken. It's definitely broken. But yeah, but I want everyone to kind of take a look at that. Like, so for the millennials, right? We're in our 30s, right? If we look back to like, about between 10 and maybe some teenager years, before 9/11. That's why I say like, 9/11 is a splitting point for a lot of millennials. If you remember 9/11 or you don't remember 9/11, that's kind of the breaking point for millennials, because at that point, that was when everything changed.
Mm-hmm.
That is when everything changed, for just the shit show. That was literally the coming into the fourth turn. Like, that was leaving the third turn and coming into the fourth turn. So like, we're talking like 03, 05 roughly, I think, is when that time frame is. And you just, if you look back at like the TV shows, like, this is really interesting. So if you if you look at the like TV shows and the music and the pop culture from 80s, 90s and stuff, and then you compare it to about 2010, 2005 to 2010, it really shifted, and it's very disheartening, right? Because then it's like you kind of realize why the depression rate, why the anxiety rate, why the just overall terrible lifestyle just happened, right? It just depreciated all of our morale, basically. And that's kind of actually roughly when, I remember, it's funny that I'm thinking about this now too, because like there was an episode, I don't remember which late night show or whatever it was, but they were going around asking people if they were proud to be an American. And they were on some university campus, and all these people were like, no, I'm embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. I hate saying that I'm American, blah, blah, blah. And I remember that people were asking that back in 05 and 06, and it was the same responses. So I think we've just kind of lost our way in the sense of pride. I don't care where you come from, whether you're Canadian or Australian. You've lost a sense of pride of where you come from. And I think that's globally. Like, everyone's pretty much like, peace out, Earth. Like, find something different. Because it is just a mess. It's a mess everywhere. And I hate it. I do, but I am also excited because having been able to be old enough to see that shift, the coming shift, that once we get out of this fourth turn, that means our daughter, who will be about 9 or 10, actually, going into the next turn, she'll get to grow up and she won't remember this time frame really. She'll remember it was a little bit shaky, a little bit rough, but it'll be one of those things where she'll actually know a good life. She'll know the simpler times because we'll be out of this turn. Just in my thought. Tudamoon, do you have something to add to it?
So, yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about, you're talking about 9/11 and being the turning point. I'll kind of remind you that we stopped producing things about 5 or 6 years prior to 9/11. I mean, it was like all of our production jobs kind of started leaving this country all at once. And so I think, to me, that's what sort of turned this country into the turn. Was we don't produce anything anymore. And that's what made America the country that it was we used to be the producers of the world's best products, and everybody had jobs, and everything's gotten changed now that we've gone for cheap labor. And, I used to be one of those, yeah, well, we should have been competitive with the Chinese, but I have kind of come to, we've hollowed out our own economy based on that philosophy. And I've converted myself back to, we really do need to be American, domestically oriented with how we consume our products. I mean, it's the only thing that's going to keep us going is to put people back to work making things.
Oh yeah, 100%. We definitely need to start doing that. We definitely need to start producing our own stuff again. That's a big thing because I mean right now like biggest exports entertainment like people like there's literally a oh, what is it? It's like a package, like it's like a party package somewhere in the Europe that you can buy. It's like the American party pack or something, and it's like red Solo cups and ping pong balls and other crazy goofy stuff. Why is that a thing? Like that should, I mean, like that. Think about what that says about us. Like if it's the American party pack, so we just look like we're a bunch of drunks that like to play beer pong. Like really? That's not it.
Yep. So you're kind of in that age group where, I mean, I remember when we did produce a lot of things and, that turn sort of happened around the mid 90s. And it was like, I don't think we've ever really, it didn't sink in until about the last 10 years. We're like, okay, we've kind of gone to way past, the pendulum has swung to now we're really in trouble that way. And it's going to take us a while to start bringing jobs back and people start having enough income that they can have a tax base that starts building. And, we just have hollowed ourselves out. We screwed ourselves over. We just got to rebuild that. And that doesn't happen in 2 years. It's going to take a while. But we have to make the decision to do it. And I think that's what's lacking is nobody's really, none of our leaders have gone, yeah, we need to have jobs. And they really make a concentrated effort to change that. It's more, it sounds good to get elected, but then everybody sort of abandons ship and they become politicians self-serving themselves again. I've gotten kind of disappointed to the whole, we're not really trying to create jobs bad enough. It sounds good on paper, but they're not doing anything. And the other thing I want to touch about, and this is kind of to your point about the zombie stocks, I need to kind of have you help me understand part of that equation. I heard everything you said, and I've sort of read a few little things about the zombie stocks, and there's a lot of different theories about what's maybe happening about it. And I listened to everything that you said because it was interesting to me to kind of, there's another play on it. If they're going to be privately held stocks, they short them down to oblivion, and then it goes into this private fund. What's the point? Who's going to crank up the price of that stock? If the institutions are just going to be amongst themselves, well, they know Sears ain't worth anything. Why would they go put money into it? There's got to be some benefit for the institutions to keep that private because, look, we're the ones that bring the stock price up. We saved all these shorted companies because we pump money into it. I don't know that the institutions would ever decide it was worth doing. So I guess I don't see the equation about what's going to happen to those stocks that's beneficial because it gets put into this private pool.
Yeah.
I mean, they can trade money back and forth now without stocks being in this pool. There's got to be something in there in that equation that makes it like, can you pump up your accounting books? Does it look like an asset because the government recognizes it that way? I mean,
yes,
I don't know.
That's exactly it. So, like I was saying, so with like sub penny stocks, you can buy a ton of them, right? And so, I'm just looking at like thousands of dollars or, but they're putting millions of dollars into these things over time. And then, all of a sudden they just pump it up. And so, that 1,500, 1,700% that Blockbuster saw, I mean, that's a ton of liquidity that you just gained, right? And so if they have any kind of need to show that they have the liquidity or the asset backing, that would be the reason. Think of the crypto pump that they did. That's the best. That's the only other one besides like RKT and stuff that they did. These random pump and dumps, these crypto pump and dumps. They're just building liquidity for either their books or to start covering something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in theory, they're going to take a worthless stock and they're all going to decide it's going to be another version of cryptocurrency. Okay, we think Sears is worth $100 this week, and we're all going to agree to that. And okay, I mean, I get that it's a corrupted system, but I mean, hell, it's a corrupted system whether they do that or not. I mean, I don't really see that what you just defined in your little presentation is like, I'm still trying to figure out they can make value anywhere they want to now. But I guess I see your point. If the average retail can get their hands on Sears and they can make Sears go to $10,000 a share, I guess that means, their credit rating looks better on the books because all of a sudden that asset value is recognized by, GAAP practices, I guess. I mean, I don't know. This whole thing, it's like we've corrupted our economy and our stock. Everything has been, I've sort of lost faith in the whole, I don't believe anything is valuable anymore. It's whatever people say it's worth. And, I mean, I'll ride that wave, but it scares the crap out of me.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a huge part of the issue. And I mean, that's why I find it extremely ironic when they talk about the gamification of trading or the gamification of the market, because it's certainly not retail investors that turned it into a game. And I mean, I'm just starting to look into, some of the stuff like the Sears and the Blockbuster. And I mean, I do understand to a certain extent some of the rulings that came out, in this past week and what they're planning to do. But like when it comes to those things, I mean, I'm fairly certain that those are liquidation funds. That those companies aren't truly really in operation anymore. They're just liquidation funds, and it's one of those things that's kind of ironic because if the market weren't as screwed up as it is, then not allowing retail to participate in those markets would theoretically make sense, and it actually would kind of protect people because I mean, I don't know, who knows, there could be people out there that don't understand that those guys aren't companies anymore, and that really the only reason the stock is around is to liquidate like the remainder of their assets that they do have, like when they ultimately get sold off, like out of their bankruptcies. But that's not the case because they've been shorted into the ground, like they're moving for a reason. I can't put my finger on exactly what that reason is, but I'm sure it's not you know
Organic.
above ground. Yeah, organic. Yeah, that's a good word for it. So it's like it's interesting though, and there, you see that so much. I think just in law and in government, like in general, is that you they'll put these things into an effect that seem kosher, on the surface, like they would make sense to somebody that's somewhat reasonable but doesn't really know what they're doing. Meanwhile, like there's some kind of sinister, undertone or ulterior motive.
On Can't Stop says, about Sears, there's DD that Sears has so much more assets than debt, which should pay out the shareholders between $12 to $20 per share after paying their debts off. Maybe we all get into Sears. That's interesting. Thank you, Can't Stop. I would love to see that DD. Yeah, I'm not touching on the student loan thing. I'm not even gonna touch that one.
So I gave a little bit of thought when I read some of this earlier this week. I thought, I wonder if they could be pulling another Hertz. I mean, does everybody kind of remember the Hertz thing where that was going bankrupt and all of a sudden the stockholders become creditors and they got like an 800% return on a bankrupt company? Do y'all kind of remember how that? Yeah. So I wonder.
Oh,
if
I do. I mean, I know a lot about that company. Spent a lot of time down there.
Could they be doing the same thing with the Sears in that, it's a bankrupt company, but they can, sort of become a creditor and have to get paid out somehow? Would that be another angle they're working?
It's possible.
Yeah. I mean, potentially. I mean, I guess the difference, which, I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, I probably shouldn't be talking about Sears too much because I don't, fully understand what's going on with the company. But I mean, the thing about Hertz is that, while they technically went into bankruptcy, like they never ceased operations, right? Like you could still go rent cars from them. I mean, they were still, up and running like that entire time.
Does anybody know if Sears buy buttons turned off? I know you can't. I think it's an OTC. Like you have to have like Charles Schwab or something like that to get into Sears and like Blockbuster and stuff. Um, so that's
Sears as a company, is that a functioning? Do they have Sears stores anymore, or is that all completely vaporized now? I mean, I
no, there's
remember
Sears
they were
stores.
other stores. Okay,
I
so it's a good thing for the Hertz. I mean, they are a running company that, albeit beleagueredly, but I mean, there's still some commerce taking place. So that kind of puts me back into the whole. Maybe it's another Hertz play that they're trying to pull.
I really have to. I'll try to do some DD on Sears and Blockbuster. I mean, Blockbuster, like we've talked about Blockbuster, on and off the last few weeks. That's why I was like, okay, simulation confirmed. Like Blockbuster is a very
Mm-hmm.
random thing to see pumped and then see it get pumped. I'm like, what the hell? So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll try to work that one up, and I'll try to have it ready for the stock day that we're having. But yeah, I don't know. Broad market wise, guys, like I'm just keep your eyes peeled. I think this week's gonna be we're gonna get a lot of news coming out of Congress and DTCC and SEC and stuff. I am a little concerned. I'm not full scale yet. Like I'm Q1 of next year. I think Q1 of next year is gonna be interesting. That's where I'm at right now. Um, Let's see. Can't Stop says, I believe 9/3 was the last day to buy on places like TD Ameritrade. Sears has been bankruptcy for 8 years, I believe, and their CEO hasn't sold a single share. Oh, okay. Well, I'll figure that one out. But that's all I have for you guys tonight. Do you guys have anything left to say?
I think I saw something on the MOAS. The FTD numbers came in on AMC, and it was like 1,800% more this reporting period than it was last reporting period. I'm like, how can they keep ignoring? I mean, holy crap! If the FTDs are up 1,800%, at what point does somebody go, okay, we can't keep just being stupid and quiet forever because there's going to be, there'll be a mutiny on the whole financial markets if we keep ignoring FTDs. But I mean, anybody else see that? I mean, I saw it. I'm like, are you kidding me? 1,800% higher this period than last period? Holy crap! I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, eventually someone has to step in and be like, all right, we're done. You're done. We gotta pull the plug on this. And I think that's I think the SEC and the DTCC they were making sure that their asses were covered. 100%.
My opinion doesn't change. I think this is a managed event. I'm just not quite sure how they're going to start unwinding it. But I mean, if I start looking at, okay, sooner or later, somebody's going to have to go, how are we going to handle this? And I think they've been working on that for a while. But, now when I see the new FTD numbers, I'm like, man, talk about putting more pressure. They're going to be maximum pain on these hedge funds. And sooner or later, somebody's got to say uncle.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's coming off of a huge box office weekend too. Apparently, that one movie. I mean, I don't even know the title of it. I don't know. I'm not a huge movie
10 Rings.
person, although I do.
Yeah, 10 Rings. Yeah, that was a blockbuster. Yeah, it did great.
But yeah, I mean, there was that, and then I don't know. Just real quickly, I know we're diverging from broad market here, and we're wrapping up. But I mean, I'm sure everybody saw like the pictures of DFV this weekend, right? The reemergence of DFV at the I don't know if it was a marathon, but I mean it was some kind of a running event, and like he was a runner, I think, like back in college. And, yeah. But I don't know. It's huge. I mean, it's likely calculated, right? I mean, he hasn't been seen or photographed like in a long time. I mean, I'm sure he made his appearance for a reason, that time traveler. Not to get too, tinfoil hatty, but I don't know. Yeah, there's a few positive things going into the week. Although, yeah, I mean, as market as a whole, I really worry about. I mean, I don't know. I'm at a place where like I want to put more capital in the market, but I don't. It's like I'd like to be more invested, but I don't know that this is a good time to do it, even if I'm looking at like a 10-20 year time frame.
Yeah, and Can't Stop saying AMC's up 1,000%. GameStop deliveries came in at 1.2 million on August 5th.
Yeah, that's not a trivial number.
Yeah, that's insane, guys. I don't know. Like, September's supposed to be a boring month for trading. I don't see that happening this year. I think it's going to be kind of interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I think all the market rules are completely warped out of shape now. I mean, nothing is doing like it's supposed to do anymore.
No, not at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I mean, it's so much more retail in there, and I mean, even just with the fall, like in March 2020, and the amount of time that people have had, like the retail influx to the market. I mean, that's what I mean. It seems to be throwing a lot of things off, even though the algos do still run, a lot of things. I don't know. It is quite interesting. I mean, anyway.
I mean, the only thing that might slow it down is if unemployment is stopped, people might not have $300 a week to chunk into the market now. So that might put a little bit of a slowdown on it. But I mean, I just don't see, it's like, how long can they keep putting off the inevitable? Mathematically, they're screwed. So, I don't know what the benefit of waiting 2 more months is going to be, but hey, we've been in this long. So, on the broader side of things, I'm sure there's a reason why they need to figure out, how much trouble is this going to cause us? Because we got to plan for a really bad hit on our economy when this starts to unfold.
Well, and so this is actually going to feed into tomorrow. So tomorrow we actually have a fun little segment that we're going to start doing. It's Takeover Tuesdays. And tomorrow we have Jackson Hunter and Boss Blunts taking over BullHouse tomorrow. I'm not monetizing the video because it isn't my content. It is them. And because Boss Blunts is basically bringing all of his DD that he's been doing about the SEC and all his other different regulations and stuff that he's been posting on Twitter. And Jackson Hunter is brilliant in the broad market sense too. And so they're going to be on Twitter Space. That's where we're going to be hosting this. Like, I'll be there, obviously. Like, I'm going to host the space and the YouTube and everything. But it's going to be them talking. It's their platform to talk. So hopefully you guys can tune into that at some point. It's gonna be
on
brilliant.
Twitter, are you going to put that on YouTube? Is that somewhere I can look without having to go to Twitter?
Yep, it'll be recorded live just like we do all these other ones. So it'll probably be an hour, 2 hours, or whatever they end up doing.
Okay.
And then I'll post the links everywhere so you guys can find it. Boss Blunts is amazing. He's a wealth of information. I don't think he sleeps. I'm fairly certain he's in that phase of all of this is where he's not sleeping. But yeah, so that's tomorrow. So a lot of these questions might actually be answered tomorrow between the two of them.
Looking forward to it. Good. I'm glad you told me that. Yes.
So on that note, guys, I appreciate everyone coming in and hanging out and everything, and just be kind to one another. There's been a lot of, so the only thing I'm going to say about it, there's been a lot of drama on Twitter, a lot of drama in the communities. Just be kind to one another. It's not worth it. It's just not worth the headache and the frustration and the sadness. I've actually had a very good weekend, hanging out with my family and Twitter and YouTube and Discord. Like, my secondary family has been, you guys have been excellent, just being kind to one another. So it's been amazing. Because that's what they want. They want us to fight. They want us to stop talking. They want to divide us. And we can't do that. We just can't let that happen. We got to just kind of stick together, right?
Okay. Thank you, Kenna.
No problem. Good night, guys.
Good night.